Welcome to the deep dive. You send us the sources, and, well, we dive in to pull out the really interesting bits, the insights you can actually use.
hmm
Our listener today wants to get up to speed quickly but thoroughly. So let's get right to it.
Yeah, we've got a really interesting mix this time. We're looking at astrology and tarot readings for May 14th and 15th, 2025. These are from Tarot by High C.
Oh, yeah, tarotbyhic.net.
Right, that's the one. And then alongside that, something different, an excerpt from this fictional story, Gate and Rune of Hesitation. It talks about the U-gate of Valar Prime.
And what's kind of striking right away is how these pieces, seemingly unrelated, they sort of echo each other.
Absolutely.
We've got cosmic stuff, archetypes, fantasy, but they're all touching on similar ideas.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to explore that, how they talk about navigating big moments, understanding limitations, and also the role of, well, hesitation when facing big changes.
There are some connections here that are genuinely surprising, I think.
Okay, so let's start with the astrology. May 14th, 2025. What's the vibe?
Well, the reading points to this tension. It's between being grounded, practical, and then this other energy that's more dreamy, maybe a bit unfocused.
Okay, like head in the clouds versus feet on the ground.
Sort of, yeah. And the advice is actually to channel those dreams, those imaginative ideas, into something concrete, material outcomes.
Interesting pairing. So don't just dream it, build it.
Pretty much. But then later in the day, the focus apparently shifts. It becomes more about realism.
Ah, the reality check.
Right, and that could mean bumping up against limitations, maybe responsibilities, or even, dealing with authority figures.
Okay, so the morning's big idea meets the afternoon's practical hurdles. What's the takeaway there? Is it supposed to be discouraging?
Not necessarily. I think it's more like refinement. The initial vision gets shaped by what's actually possible.
Right.
And the reading actually says these restrictions shouldn't feel too limiting. It suggests that, growth often involves making tough choices. Delayed gratification, maybe.
So navigating the constraints is part of the process.
Exactly. Which kind of leads into the next point. The astrology suggests it might be a good time to shake things up a bit,
How so?
like reevaluating goals, routines, even what makes you feel secure. It's pushing for flexibility, finding new solutions.
Even if that means breaking with tradition.
Yeah, potentially.
Uh,
Which, can feel a bit unstable for some people.
Sure, comfort zones are comfortable for a reason.
Mm-hmm. But maybe true security comes from adapting, not just sticking to the old ways. However, and this is important, there's also a warning
Okay.
about information overload. A restless mind. It cautions against exaggerating facts or making reactive moves based on incomplete info.
Ah, so innovate, yes. But don't just jump because you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed. Think it through.
Precisely. It's finding that balance, isn't it? Respecting the real limits, but also questioning the ones you might have just accepted.
Knowing when to push and when to pause. Okay.
Which brings us nicely to the TarotScope for the next day, May 15th. We're looking at the rune EIHWZ, but reversed.
I was. That's the U rune, right?
Ah,
Associated with resilience, connections between worlds.
that's the one, in its upright meaning, but reversed. It gets complicated.
And Tarot by High C interprets the reversed EIHWZ as resistance to change, fear of loss, misalignment with inner wisdom. Wow, okay.
Yeah, it feels like a pretty direct echo of that potential resistance we just talked about, doesn't it?
It really does, like standing at a doorway but just not wanting to go through. What's driving that, according to the reading?
Well, fundamentally, it's tapping into that very human fear of the unknown, and crucially, the fear of losing something.
What we already have, maybe, even if it's not great.
Exactly. We cling to the familiar because it feels predictable, even if it's holding us back. So EIHWZ reversed suggests this resistance to life's natural flow, maybe a lack of trust in how things unfold.
The reading uses phrases like stubbornly holding on to things out of fear, and it warns against forcing decisions or clinging to outdated plans.
Mm-hmm. It really shifts the focus from external limits, like in the astrology, to our own internal blocks. Why are we resisting?
Yeah. It also talks about potentially repeating patterns, like are we stuck in a loop because we're avoiding a lesson?
That's a key part of it. And it cautions against escapism, too. The ways we might try to numb out or avoid the discomfort of facing that fear.
So no easy way out. You have
Right.
to confront the resistance.
Right. But it's not all doom and gloom. The reading also mentions spiritual resilience.
Okay, how does that fit in?
It suggests this isn't just a time to give up or run away. It's actually a call to reconnect with your inner wisdom, your intuition, even if it feels faint. trusting your own strength to get through.
So it's about introspection, understanding the why behind the hesitation, not just trying to power through it.
Exactly. And that theme resonates so strongly with our fictional piece, Gate and Rune of Hesitation.
Right, the U gate of Valar Prime.
Yeah.
Sounds very atmospheric. Tell us about it.
So the setting is this planet, Valar Prime, orbiting a dying star. And this U-gate, it's described as this ancient passage between worlds, made from the bones of a giant primordial tree. You again.
That connection again.
Mm-hmm.
And it connects the material and spiritual realms. Sounds intense. Ominous reputation you mentioned.
Definitely. Crossing it is seen as a profound, irreversible step. The U itself symbolizes that cycle of death and rebirth, endurance. So the gate embodies that threshold.
And our main character is Colin Moore. He's from a fallen noble house, and his destiny is tied to this gate.
Mm-hmm. There's even a prophecy from these matron seers that he'll falter, that he'll hesitate out of fear, and that hesitation will seal his fate.
It's like the story is giving us a character who embodies EIHYZ reversed.
It really feels that way. Colin's been trained his whole life, combat, mental discipline, ancient prayers. You'd think he'd be ready.
But the story says none of that prepared him for the gate itself.
Right. It suggests some challenges need more than just skill or willpower. Maybe a different kind of inner strength.
You get summoned by this Order of Iwaz.
Oh!
Wow, okay, the name again. And the stakes are huge. His family's honor, his people's survival, that's immense pressure.
It is. And when he actually stands before the gate, it's described as having this impossible geometry. And he's hit with visions of failure. That fear of loss we talked about, letting people down, not measuring up, becomes really tangible for him.
And then there's that line, to cross is to die, to stand still is to decay. That perfectly captures the dilemma, doesn't it?
It really does. The terror of moving forward versus the certainty of stagnation if he stays. He's trapped.
Until the Seeress, Vera Shadewalk asks him that key question. What do you cling to, Colin Moore?
Yeah. And that's his moment of clarity. He realizes his fear isn't just what might happen if he crosses, but what he'll lose. His identity, his past, everything he's attached to. Crossing means shedding his old self.
That at the core of EHWZ reversed, isn't it? That fear of loss being the barrier. Hesitating because of the grief of letting go.
Exactly. It's so relatable, that difficulty in releasing the past, even when you know you need to.
But then, surprisingly, Killen doesn't cross. He turns away.
Right, and the seers, they just accept it, which is fascinating.
It is. What does that imply?
Well, the story ends with him kneeling in the dunes, and it feels like that's the start of his real test. Not crossing the gate, but confronting why he couldn't. Maybe sometimes understanding the hesitation is the necessary first step.
So courage isn't always about pushing forward blindly. Sometimes it's about pausing to understand what's holding you back.
That seems to be the suggestion. So if we pull all these threads together.
Yeah, let's synthesize. We had the astrology urging balance action tempered by realistic limits.
Then the tarot with EIHWZ reversed, really digging into that internal resistance, the fear of loss.
And Kalen's story just brings that whole internal struggle to life. The pressure to act versus the deep fear of letting go.
What's really interesting is how the astrology's push to shake things up is sort of balanced by the tarot, and the stories focus on inner work first.
Right. It's like you can't just force change effectively if you haven't understood your own resistance. Kalen had to face why he clung to the past before any real transformation could begin.
And the seers accepting his choice. That's powerful. It suggests hesitation isn't always failure. Maybe it's a necessary pause, a stage you have to go through for genuine change to happen later. You can't rush that inner alignment.
So pausing might actually be the most productive thing sometimes.
In the long run, perhaps. It allows for that deeper understanding.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, we've seen these really different sources, astrology, runes, a fantasy story, all pointing to this complex relationship between moving forward, hitting limits, and the real significance of those moments where we just pause, where we hesitate.
Which leads to a question for you, the listener, to maybe reflect on. Think about a threshold you might be facing right now, big or small.
Yeah. What limits, real or perceived, or what fears of loss might be contributing to any hesitation you feel?
And maybe consider that symbolism of the yew tree, its ability to endure, yes, but also to shed what's old and unneeded. How might that apply to your situation?
We really hope exploring these sources together has sparked some insights for you, those aha moments, without feeling like just too much information.
The goal was quick, thorough understanding.
Exactly. Keep exploring these ideas in your own life, with your own sources. Thanks for diving deep with us today.